received some of the questions that I had sent?
Yeah.
Okay. I definitely feel free to kind of go off, but that will help
Yeah,
us
Kelly,
kind of
now we
keep
can
things
hear you.
moving.
Thank you.
Okay. So Hamid, would you like to introduce yourself in the class before we get started? And then I'll just say a brief introduction of Alan.
Sure. Hi, Alan.
Hi.
I already introduced you to my class, but just let me do it one more time. So Alan is one of our most successful alumni. Today he wants to talk about the prospect of your future in terms of your professional career in business analytics. From my side, my name is Hamid. I'm assistant professor of business analytics and information management, and this class is visual analytics class. So students learn a wide variety of skills from visualizations to predictive analytics, and at the end prescriptive analytics or something about operation management and OR. So without further ado, I give the everything to Kelly and Alan, and please just start from here.
Thanks, Hamid. So Alan, we're presenting in Hamid's class, which probably has, 20 or so students in it. And then we have some students who are outside the class who've also signed in. So I think you see, the few students who have signed in separately, and then plus it's projecting to Hamid's class. So thank you very much for the class. This is Alan Jackson. He graduated in 2010 with a degree in psychology, and his career really started in psych and education, but it transitioned with his movement within analytics to more web technology and now in banking. And so he's going to talk to us about his early career and then how he's really made that transition, right, from sort of the nonprofit-y health, mental health areas to the more corporate world. So Alan, thanks again so much for doing this. So I know that was sort of a brief introduction, but maybe you could take a couple minutes to sort of talk about yourself, when you graduated, what your experience at Clark was like, and how your career sort of started.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks so much, Kelly, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for joining today and letting me share my my experiences and experiences with you on data analytics. Like Kelly said, it was a career shift for me. I thought I wanted to go into psychology. And I did go into psychology, as Kelly mentioned. I worked at McLean Hospital. I worked at a sleep lab at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. But during that time, I was, slowly exposed to analytics, first through statistics as a psychology undergrad. Fortunately, my aunt, who is a retired MD, started collecting data on various outcomes of psychosocial health, things like that, from adolescents attending a progressive boarding school in Vermont. So she didn't have, as a retired MD in her 50s, she didn't really grow up in the age of technology and computers. So she was kind of manually entering all of this data into spreadsheets that she would have each of the students fill out as questionnaire data. But that really gave me the opportunity to start playing around with data and getting practice with various tools like R. So that helped me learn one of the biggest tools that I use in my day-to-day job is R, for as you probably are familiar with, manipulating data, analyzing it, visualizing it. There are over 10,000 libraries or something like that. So, but anyway, I was in the psych field, and I eventually realized, working at McLean Hospital, that I didn't really have a passion in any certain narrow focus of psychology, and working at a psychiatric hospital, I also came to realize that the entire mental health system in the United States is sort of not geared towards helping people and utilizing the techniques and tools that I was learning in clinical psychology. Patients are much more likely to prefer, prescription medication, things like that. So I didn't really see a very rewarding career as a clinical psychologist. I would probably be working more with high functioning patients, maybe doing marriage counseling, things like that. So I switched gears at the same time. A friend at Clark actually, who majored and got the 5th-year master's in GIS, had just completed the first, I think, master's in data analytics from Northeastern University. And this was a long time ago. This was in like 2011, 2012. And that gave me the idea, hey, I don't have a computer science, I don't have a math background or physics or anything like that, but it is possible to kind of switch gears, maybe apply to one of these master's programs in data analytics. So when I started researching what was out there, I came across a boot camp through Northeastern called Level, which no longer exists today, but it was like a 8-week boot camp, and they kind of just tried to stuff as much down your throat as possible in terms of Tableau, SQL, R, machine learning, things like that. But it really gave me kind of the credential I needed to, from there, start applying to just all, whatever I could find out there in terms of an entry-level data analyst position. And luckily, I was able to find one within a month of graduating from this program. So that was, yeah.
So how did you kind of use that to transition? How did you actually land that first job and then your subsequent jobs? Was it through networking? Was it through strict application? And what was that experience like, that first non-mental health, non-education experience?
Yeah, sure. So great question. I was lucky enough to kind of get, credentialed in data analytics at a time when it was very new and is still in demand. And I think with the pandemic, we've seen that it still is a very in demand, high demand field to go in because so much of our day-to-day lives are taking place online, and data is just proliferating at an extremely fast rate. And just in terms of everyday things, it's good to know some of these skills, visualizing your own data, or communicating insights to people that are based on data, right? So anyway, I was lucky enough to enter the field at a time that it was very, it was an opportune time. I just applied to whatever was in Boston, greater Boston at the time. I was living in Brighton. So I just applied to entry-level positions, just went online, Indeed, Monster, anything I could find. And luckily I got an interview at the job I ended up starting in, and that really gave me kind of the actual real world job experience that I needed, because up to that point I really didn't have any, like you mentioned, I was coming directly from a totally different field. So having that work experience really helped kind of cement some of my skills, helped me gain just a tremendous amount of knowledge. Luckily, the first job I got, this job was for a tech company. So I was able to just, quickly learn and be exposed to all different kinds of people, mostly, a lot of engineers, because it was a tech company. So, there were engineers, there were accountants, there were FP&A analysts, business analysts, all types of people that I was around. So really got to kind of absorb what what they were doing and kind of build experience that way as well.
So what were you doing in your first analytic position or tech position?
Yeah. So I started off as a financial operations data analyst. Really all that entailed was, getting a report at the end of the month, and calculating and filtering a report, a flat CSV file of data, and coming up with how many subscribers we had for a particular business unit. And since we were a public company and we had over a dozen legal entities, that process kind of got multiplied by how kind of grew quickly in terms of the volume of these reports that we were getting. So it really needed kind of a dedicated data analyst to go through all of that data and filter it, sift through it, clean it, and then summarize it for FP&A. So my job kind of evolved from there, but really it was mostly involved and concerned with like automating that process, because the person that was doing it before me, was literally opening each spreadsheet one by one, kind of filtering the columns, and then entering a number in a spreadsheet to start aggregating all of this data. And that it's very time consuming, it's prone to error, it's hard to track what filters you're applying and things like that. So using R, using some sort of scripting language, I wish it had been Python, because I would have been learning that a little bit sooner, but it was with R, and I was kind of automating that whole process of processing the data, filtering it, aggregating it. I didn't get totally, I didn't, by the end of that role, I didn't fully have it all automated. I wish I had even automated the part where I was inputting, these values into an Excel spreadsheet in the format that FP&A needed it in, but I didn't get quite that far. But I got pretty far. I was able to, reduce the amount of time that this monthly close kind of process took in terms of calculating our net subscribers and various metrics like that.
And how did you know that you were ready to move on to the next role, and what was that?
Sure. Yeah. So it happened, organically, and naturally. It was, the role had become available on my team to kind of shift into a different technology, and that so going from, I guess, a data analyst, senior data analyst, to more of a kind of like a business developer role, where I'm doing more SQL programming of stored procedures, things like that, to modify business code and creating and modifying code that summarize these financial reports just in a slightly different manner. As before, it was kind of counting the data. This time it was actually using the financial transaction dollar amounts and summarizing the data at a transactional level, summarizing them down to the journal entry level that would then get fed into these accounting systems. So I saw that as an opportunity to grow. And, since someone left on my team, management was very eager to replace them with someone, who was with the company for a while. I had been with the company for at least 3 years then. And so they were kind enough to let me take on that position, promote me, I guess, in a way. so that they could retain, some of that institutional knowledge. I was already working with I was already in the meetings with these people anyway, so I knew all of them. And it was just kind of shifting into a different role. So that was how I became a business developer. And I held that role up until the time that I left just last year to go to the Federal Reserve.
So can you talk about what you do at the Fed?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a senior data analyst for the audit department, and really they haven't had the role. They haven't had a dedicated data analyst on their team before, so I'm kind of the first one, and so that's kind of good and bad. Good in the sense that I can suggest what I want, and they'll listen to my suggestions, and they don't really have preconceived notions or anything around different technologies and things like that. But kind of difficult and challenging in the sense that there aren't those pre-existing data pipelines that I can take advantage of, and I can start tapping into and leveraging from day one. I need to go out. I need to find the various data owners in all of these different places, and I need to set up these data pipelines myself, and do it efficiently and effectively. So that's kind of the role I'm doing now. I'm a data analyst for the audit team, so that can encompass a wide range of tasks, from anything from helping with point-in-time audits that the auditors are doing on a particular business unit. Maybe it's creating a visualization for them to show their results to the stakeholder. Like I said, it's creating these data pipelines to do more kind of continuous risk assessment and monitoring of risks across the bank. So establishing that framework to do that. So right now I'm actually trying to kind of create some automated solutions where I can leverage maybe a cloud computing environment like a Linux cluster or something like that, to automate what I was doing on my desktop. So I can have these dashboards maybe be hosted by Tableau server. I can have those refreshed automatically without having my computer have to be on or anything, have to be doing anything with my computer. So we're working on some of those processes right now. But yeah, that's basically what I'm doing now.
So you've worked in various industries, and our students, of course, will be applying to lots of different industries within, the analytics spectrum. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what the differences are, or what you observed in the different types of industries you've worked in?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, or not. I mean, I've worked in a couple, but yeah, like with data, I mean, now the data is everywhere, and everyone's using computers to automate different parts of their job. You really can be a data analyst in almost any industry. I was just reading about a DevOps engineer working in the film industry, because those companies require a lot of supercomputing for their processes like CGI and things like that. So really, I mean, it's any industry in particular that you can think of now, is working with data. So in my personal experience, I started off in technology, but it was kind of the subset of financial operations and accounting. So working a lot with for FP&A, financial planning and analysis, working some with marketing to kind of align their metrics with what we're doing. And then, since we're in financial operations and we had to kind of keep keep track of, the cash coming in through the door. It was also working a lot with kind of these payment processors like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. So yeah, I mean, I would, and then yeah, so that was the financial operations side. And now, now that I'm in the Federal Reserve System, it's kind of learning a whole new different structure of how things work, because there are, 12 districts, 13 if you count the board in DC. So everyone has it, there's this individual districts, but then they all kind of are specialized in their own functions. So supervision and regulation is more predominant in New York City. We're working more on kind of digital currencies, centralized digital currencies, things like MSLP, the Main Street lending platform that was spun up during the pandemic. So each district kind of has their own project that they work on and lead. So yeah, it's given me a good chance. Like in terms of your question, Kelly, about kind of like culture, it definitely is a lot kind of more laid back at the Fed, just because it's not as especially in kind of since I'm no longer in finance, really financial operations, it's not as I would say more kind of like a traditional kind of finance type of culture where things need to be done quickly, very fast. I mean, in accounting, you're kind of up against a hard deadline with accounting where every single month you need to have the numbers exactly correct and done at a certain time. Every day that you're late after the end of the month, you're more stressed out and you're delaying the process. So from that standpoint, it's a lot less stressful working at the Federal Reserve. But I will say this, it was a good opportunity working, in the financial operations team that I was in, because when I first started, I was reporting directly to the VP of financial operations. And so kind of being as an entry-level data analyst, but reporting to a VP, I was able to kind of learn a lot about how to interface, with multiple stakeholders and people at the top level of management. And so kind of just learning, how he would conduct meetings, what questions he would ask, kind of how he would ask questions basically and conduct meetings to get them done as efficiently as possible, because he was in so many meetings because he was VP. So really narrowing in on the problem, finding the right solution quickly and efficiently. So I got to learn some softer skills from being able to kind of interact and be kind of supervised by kind of a higher level management type of person. So I would say take that into account, when you're starting out. If it's a more junior role, but you're reporting to a VP or someone you're going to be able to learn from, then I'd say that would make it a more attractive position to pursue. Really.
So you mentioned skills. So, when we think of starting our career, right, there's sort of two sets of skills. And for analytics, of course, there's more the hard skills of the certain language, whether it's SQL or R or Tableau or something like that. But then you have the important softer transferable skills. Could you maybe talk a little bit about those sets of skills and what ones are most valuable and students need to be thinking about as they pursue their first career?
Yeah, definitely. So the softer skills are really important to develop. It's being a good listener, really being an effective communicator as well. You want to kind of build rapport with, your stakeholders and your and your colleagues, because I think you need to build that trust, and you need to have that relationship, and they need to think of you not as just someone, this transactional person where, you're just requesting data or something and then they're giving it to you. You really want to create that solid, relationship built on kind of trust and this shared value of, we're trying to accomplish the same goals. We're trying to align to the same goals here, and that's why we're working together. Get them on the same page, communicate them what you're trying to do with the data. Tell them what kind of questions you're going to answer. You're hoping to answer. Share the results of your analysis with them. Share whatever insights you have with them as you look at their data. Ask questions. Be very curious. Because having a good relationship with the stakeholders is imperative, because most oftentimes they will know the data better than you when they're first giving it to you. So you want to make them feel comfortable and open to sharing as much as they can about the data. So that's just work off your plate that you're getting for free, essentially, and kind of cutting out all potential headaches you might get after you spin your wheels trying to figure out what this data even means. Maybe they give you data that you can't even use at first, and it's not even the right kind of data. So you have to go back to them, or you have to find someone completely different. You have to go above them. You have to, go to someone else in a separate department. So really kind of, being, effective and empathic communicator, so you can, achieve your goals efficiently and to get the source of the truth is what you want at the end of the day. So getting there as quickly as possible. Being a, empathic, good listener, but, also, sometimes, one of the questions that, you asked, Kelly, to prepare for this was kind of like, what kind of a person is a good fit for these roles? And so sometimes, data science and data analytics can be kind of an isolating type of role, because, you're just given a bunch of data, you're maybe given just a database schema, and you need to kind of create reports, and you need to understand how all of the tables, relate to one another, and it can be isolating. So there's that part too, if you're just in the trenches kind of creating reports or visualizations or writing business code. And so that's something to be aware of as too. But, like I said, there's a huge field of data right now. So, I mean, anything you can think of, if you're an extrovert, maybe you want to gravitate more towards, a product manager position or something like that. If you're really into coding and, and software, then there's a ton of, DevOps, data engineering, data science, where you can do a lot of that as well, build models. And it depending on where you work, back to the whole culture thing, it can be more of a team-based collaborative approach. It doesn't always have to be just you're stuck in this vertical and you're reporting to your boss and you need to feed them reports, and you're just kind of stuck in this cubicle coding all day. It doesn't have to be like that.
Alan, let me just reshape the question. So, I think most of the students here have limited experience, or maybe they just came to US and never worked in the US. So your answer, I think, is more related to a student who already have some maybe internship experience or some related work experiences. So let's say you want to hire somebody for a business analyst position. So, and you are looking on their skills, and like for harder skills, maybe it's easier because you either look at their certificates, their education, or you ask them technical questions. What about softer skills? Let's say you want to decide to hire somebody in 20 minutes and you want to just interview them. What you look at and how students can improve it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I would ask them kind of questions like, describe a time, where you were, challenged at your job, and describe how you dealt with that challenge, or describe to me an entire your biggest achievement, your biggest accomplishment that you've done. What what hurdles did you have to overcome, things like that. To give me explain, describe to me what your work style is. I mean, do you like to be are you comfortable working with others in a dynamic environment where you might not get a lot of oversight all the time, or do you prefer more hands-on type of tasks where you can kind of create the solution on yourself, or do you prefer more back and forth kind of work style where you can get a constant feedback on how you're doing? Things like that, I guess, just to get kind of a brief idea of kind of like what their personality is, how they would fit in the company that they're in. It kind of goes back to the culture of the company and whether they're going to be a good fit for there or not. It's not like you're trying to find people who are going to say one thing or the other. You're just trying to get a feel of kind of their overall personality, and whether they would be happy at that company or not. There's a certain type of person that I think would be happy at one company over another. So just getting a sense of what their goals are, what's most important to them, I think would be helpful for me in kind of determining their fit for the company.
Did any students in the class have questions? I'm happy to keep going, but I want to make sure students get to ask any questions.
Yeah, I asked them, just let me ask one more question, then I asked them to just raise their hands, and some of the students are online. So Alan, I have two groups of students in my class. One they have a strong analytics background. So they already trained like Python, they are learning Tableau and Power BI in my class. So, but what about the other type of students? So I have students which might have different undergrad background, and also even for the grad, some of them are from MBA, like let's say marketing. So, and I guess some of them are interested to get a position similar to what you have, given the fact that they have limited technical knowledge by now. So what is your suggestion? So what technical skills or you might suggest them to just catch it up, and maybe in let's say 3 or 4 months, they could be a good fit for a position similar to you, but in the much lower level, let's say entry level?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question I get a lot. I get asked of a lot, and really, if depending on the type of role they're trying to get, if they're trying to pursue a more technical role, I would definitely say to I guess build something that you can show your prospective employer, and there are tools out there. A buddy of mine actually hosted his own data science portfolio on a free Heroku web app server. So it was completely free, and he was showing me the code. It wasn't, apart from the data science portion of it, it wasn't a whole lot of code to set up the server, configure it, and then release the code on it. So things like that will kind of demonstrate proficiency, not just in one area, but a whole bunch of related areas to problem solving, to deploying apps, to just the whole technology stack, right? So I would say, if that would be the ideal kind of sort of thing to get started. And he right now he got hired by a data science company in Mexico, so that did help him, land his first job as a data scientist. So I would say, that, if you can build your own web app, where employers, all they have to do is click a link and they can kind of get a glimpse of what you're able to do. I think that would kind of set you apart from the rest of the pack, just because, it takes time to learn how to set up your own server, how to, how to build the front end UI, HTML, CSS, all of that. So I would say you could do that. I mean, and there are easier ways to do it, and there are harder ways. The easier ways might have a cost associated with them, but even then, you're still kind of demonstrating your ability in whatever technical area that you're trying to pursue.
So what I understand from you, so let's say students from other majors, they learn some technical skills, then they need a way to impress their employer. So maybe you said Heroku or other web app tools. I think they know some about public Tableau. So some of them made really good visualization. I asked them to just broadcast over Tableau so they can show in the interview. So yeah, I got it. So they not only need to learn techniques, but also they have to have a kind of being able to show off their tech skills. Okay, got it.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
Great. So, okay, let me see students if they have questions. And so let's first ask from the student in the class, do you guys have any questions from Alan? Yes?
I'm curious, how did you land your job at Federal?
Could you come here? And I'm not sure. Could you hear her?
No, I couldn't.
Okay, just come here and ask him.
Hello, hi, my name is Nahimi. I'm curious, how did you land your job at the Federal Reserve? Like, was it through networking, or like, how was the application process?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I can't take too much credit for anything I did. I actually got a recruiter on LinkedIn contacted me about the position. So I was fortunate enough in that regard. And you will find, as you get experience over time, especially depending on where you work, that it will be easier to get. I know it seems kind of like a circular thing now. You can't get experience without having it, to begin with. But once you are established in the workforce with a particular company, it'll become easier to gain momentum, and you'll find that you can kind of jump from one place to the next a lot easier.
So did that recruiter notice something on your LinkedIn profile? Did you have certificates on there or examples of your work?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kelly. I'm not sure if it's kind of I had a more well-rounded profile. Like I don't know if he thought I was getting maybe bored at my current job. Like I was ready for a change. I mean, I'm sure there are a ton of analytics that they do to kind of identify candidates who are likely to kind of move from their current roles. So I wish I knew more and asked them that, but yeah, unfortunately I don't know kind of what algorithm he used to pick me up.
No, I think that's great. And I just wanted to point it out to students listening that can happen, right? So having a really current LinkedIn profile, having it look really well, your work displayed, certificates, you may get contacted by someone, and being able to respond professionally and appropriately, right, is really important.
Yeah, so let me add one thing. So you guys learn about sentiment analysis, right? Last class, I talked about how algorithms look at the text and predict something. So for Alan case, it was some sentiment like text mining algorithms went through his profile, maybe because of some of his connections or keywords, they found he could be a good candidate, right? So what does it mean? You need to have a very good LinkedIn profile. So it just raises your chance. So I think there is some online tutorials that you can learn how to efficiently improve your LinkedIn. So if there is some text mining algorithm that goes through everybody's LinkedIn profile, they can easily pick you. So maybe connection and keywords are necessity. Yeah, actually, Alan, they learn how to basically make those algorithms. So especially like in these weeks, I'm teaching them like sentiment analysis, text mining things. So, but I mean, they need to know how to have a very impressive profile, either for human and also for the algorithms. So next question. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question from Alan? So as you see, her question was great. It just give you some takeaways. So any question is a good question.
Alan, for students who are having trouble landing an internship, right? So it's really competitive to find an internship. Students and really anybody, even just in the job search, are applying to 300 and 400 opportunities, right? So for students who are having trouble getting an internship, what else can they do that will sort of display to an employer their ability within analytics or their knowledge or their potential fit? What can they do?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Sometimes we're finding, especially, I don't know if this applies everywhere, just at the Fed Reserve, but we're finding more qualified candidates for intern positions than we are for, these full-time roles, just, because of the Great Resignation, all of that. So, I would say, back to what I said about demonstrating your technical abilities. You can kind of go above and beyond that. In a cover letter, you can try to hack the cover letter, so to speak, and really do a lot of research in the company, especially if you're passionate about it. Figuring out what data might be of interest to them, and analyzing it, even before they even ask you about it, or kind of analyze it as a way as kind of an audition for the job. There's so many free and low cost APIs out there to connect to whatever data source that you that the company is working with, and maybe provide some insights to them, either in cover letter or like a message to the recruiter and saying, hey, I'm looking at this data, and this is what I thought about. These are some of the insights I made from doing a bunch of this analytical work. And then, you might not even have to, show off in that respect too. If you're on LinkedIn, just reaching out to a recruiter, just a simple, hello, like I'm interested in this, just making that personal connection with them, and, sharing a little bit about yourself, reaching out, and asking them, do you know, like, are you familiar with the recruiters, or can you introduce me to the recruiter hiring for this position? I'd really love to speak to them about, my fit for the role, things like that. Try to approach it from as many angles as possible. But yeah, leverage LinkedIn, leverage, just openly available data out there that you can maybe, like the professor just said, text mining, maybe you want to scrape their entire website and come up with ways that that you can kind of learn their company, learn as much about their company before you apply, so that you can, when you're reaching out in these professional conversations, that, you can seem educated and knowledgeable already about their company. That's gonna kind of impress them a lot and go really far. When you do talk to them, it's going to make a good impression on them.
Mid, did you have any other questions from the class? I want to be mindful of your time and of Alan's time.
Yeah, just let me see. So, yeah, just come over here, ask him. Yeah, one more still.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Alan. My name is Dheeraj. I have a question regarding the role of business analyst or a data analyst. Like in your day-to-day work and your life, is it too monotonous? Like after a certain time, does it become too monotonous and you want to switch to another role or something of that sorts? And if it does, how do you handle such situation?
So
Thank you.
So no problem. So if I heard your question correctly, it's kind of how to know when to transition from one role to the next. Yeah, I mean, these positions in data analytics and data science, they're all so new that there's a huge wide range of kind of roles and capabilities associated with these titles. So even the role of data scientist, I've seen, people require a PhD. Some you only need a master's degree, and even some smaller companies you don't even need that. I mean, just skills with Tableau and Excel will kind of get you that role. So I would say, like, it first started out as a data analyst at the company I told you about, the tech company, because it didn't require a lot of business knowledge to do the job. I was mainly kind of just applying very common sense rules to the data, and there was just a large amount of data that I had to process. So it was more a kind of that data analyst kind of title fit that role better, I guess. But as you go towards a business developer, then I think more companies more often would like to see some sort of kind of accounting knowledge, where you have a better sense of, what is revenue, what is EBITDA, what are some of these accounting principles and terminologies. So that might factor in a little bit more about, how you choose and how you kind of, shift from one role to the next. In my case, it was a business developer because I was working more with business code and summarizing data for journal entries, for cash journal entries. So it was a very specific kind of domain I was working in. I didn't have any accounting knowledge. I didn't know what a debit or a credit was. I didn't need to know any of that. I kind of learned it as I go, and you read the code and you say, okay, well, if it's this report and if it's a positive number, then it's a debit for revenue, and it's a credit for cash or something, or vice versa. So you can learn it as you go. But yeah, that might be the big distinction there, is kind of having that prior business knowledge and business background.
Maybe we could even break it just a little bit further down to his question of, what really kind of excites you about working in data science, and when do you get bored?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, Kelly. Yeah, so I guess it's exciting, to know that really, like, any day of the week I can just turn on my computer and learn about a technology I had never even heard of before, or some kind of framework that's making it easier to do something that I want to do, and really, I consider myself a lifelong learner, and so it's really nice being able to just go on your computer and learn about whatever you want, and learn, not only for the sake of learning, but also to make your job easier. Because, at the end of the day, software engineers, data analysts, they're very lazy people. They want a solution that can be automated, and that's really kind of the gold standard for doing your job well, is if you can automate it, especially in software engineering. So, so it's things like that may make me excited, ways of automating processes, and knowing that, wow, I took this, extremely manual process, and I was able to write code to make it more efficient and automated. And then your question about, the other piece was,
when do you get bored?
When do I get bored? Yes. I guess, yeah. I mean, I get bored when I'm not kind of working with data. When I'm, less in a technical role and more kind of in a more kind of interfacing with management or stakeholders and trying to get access to data, things like that, where it's kind of hard to figure out what data I need and how, especially with a lot of these big monolithic systems like people like Workday and these giant ERP systems. Sometimes it can be hard to get access to them initially. And I mean, it's even in the benefit of some of these software, companies to make them monolithic and to make it hard for data to come out, because they want to keep you using their product. So they want to keep the data. And so it's kind of hard when, some of those walls are constructed around the data and make it hard to get access to. And yeah, I guess I just get bored when, it becomes more like politics that are kind of involved in, deciding, who gets access to what data. Technically, I'm an auditor, so I should be able to get access to anything I want. I mean, I'm not an auditor, but I work for the audit department. So yeah, it shouldn't be an issue in theory, but in practice, sometimes it's a little bit different.
Hamid, did you have other questions?
So we're from class. Do you guys have questions from Alan? What about people over Zoom? If you guys have questions, you can just turn on your mic and ask your question.
Yeah, and I mean, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn after the call if you have any other questions. I can't guarantee a prompt response, but I will get back to you, as soon as I can. And yeah, if you think of any questions later on.
Come here, please.
Well, where can we find them?
How?
Yeah, where can we find her?
So they want to know how they find you over LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Kelly can share my contact info with you. I can drop a link in the chat. I
can send it to Hamid.
Okay. I can send it to Hamid. Yeah.
Okay. I share them with the students. Cool.
Okay. Well, yeah. If there aren't other questions, I don't want to keep you, Alan, because I know you've got a schedule, and Hamid, you may have things to cover in the class.
Yeah.
So, Alan, thank you so much for coming and for talking with students and sharing information. It was really, really great. I think everybody got something out of it from one point or another, and we just really appreciate your time and effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's my
Thank
pleasure.
you, Alan. Yeah, we totally appreciate your help. It was definitely useful for students. They had, I see some of them took notes, and I think very productive teaching day. Thank you very much.
Great. Yeah, my pleasure, Ahmed. Thank you for having me in your class.
Right. Alan, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And Hamid, I'll let you take over class.
Sure. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay.
Bye, Alan. Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone, have a good afternoon.
Okay.